19-year-old lad taking charge of a 34-ton Lancaster. It beggars belief, doesn't it? But those were the times, that's what people did. That's what I did, anyway. Thousands like me. 86,000 operational aircrew are recorded as being on flying duties. 56,000 of them died. There's no record of the wounded or ever. Oh, that's a hell of an attrition rate, far greater than any other service, Army or Navy. So it was a dodgy business. Yeah.
What was the life expectancy of the crew?
A new crew would expect at the minimum a fortnight, at the maximum 6 weeks. And we went from, August to November.
So how many missions did you fly then?
34 altogether. I was shot down on the last one on the 21st of November 1944 by predicted flak, which is easy to dodge if you're on your own. But we were doing George Howe work in daylight, where you had to fly in formation, trying to imitate the ranks in a way with carpet bombing. But we were supposed to pick up a yellowtail over Lincoln. He had the oboe gear to get us to target. But we couldn't pick one up, so we had to drop in the box. There's a Vic of 4, like an inverted V. And the box is where you fit yourself in for fighter protection for the whole group of the V. And once you're in there, you've got to stay there. Otherwise you lose, the whole group loses the fighter protection should you be attacked. So the rear gunner piped up to say predicted flak was catching up with us. Well, if the first burst doesn't get you, you've got about 7 to 9 seconds, depending on your height, before the next burst comes, while they predict and load the guns and so forth, so you can alter position to high, low, left, right, so the burst will be where you were instead of where you are now. And you can keep jinxing like this until you might fly predicted flat. But because we were sitting ducks in the back, we had to stay there until it gradually crept up, and the last burst blew half the tail away. So the aircraft was uncontrollable then, and the order to bail out was given at that time. So out we went. I heard the rear gunner say rear gunner leaving, mid upper leaving. I had to reach behind the pilot to get my parachute out of a rack which kept behind the pilot. They were clip-on chutes. We didn't wear them in the aircraft because they were too bulky. And then the wireless operator and the navigator and the bomber had already gone. He never even said goodbye. He just lifted the hatch and went. And incidentally, the wireless operator was a bloke called Nesbitt. Our wireless operator had picked up a wound in his skull over the Walstreen Islands, and he was in hospital at the time. And this chap Nesbitt, he was the wireless operator leader of the whole group, the boss over all the wireless operators. And it was his 100th operation. Can you imagine how cross he was having to dive out in daylight? I know I would have been if it had been my 100th operation. Anyway, that's by the way, I digress. I was off oxygen for too long at 22,000 feet, and although I managed to pull the rut card when I dived out, I reached over for the skipper's Sutton harness pin, but he shook his head. No, he'd do it himself. I was last out by him because he only had aileron control and was trying to keep the aircraft steady while we got out. And I went out, but having been off oxygen, I managed to pull my D-ring. The parachute deployed with quite a shock and it started to swing. So I reached up for the shroud line to stop the swing and I blacked out, anoxia, through lack of oxygen. So I don't recall very much of the actual fall. in daylight, of course. But I came to when I hit a patch of rubble, and there's 2 Wehrmacht German soldiers unzipping me and pinching all my belongings, my watch and my cigarettes and my escape kit and anything they could lay thieving hands on. And then they stood me up and marched me back to a police station. I forget what the town was called. It was near Hom anyway, where we came down. And they took my flying boots off me and stuffed me in a cell down there till the following morning, when I was taken upstairs to face a very angry chief of police who, I don't know, he might have had sons or brothers or parents killed in raids. He certainly was a very angry man. And he made a great show of taking his Luger pistol out of the holster, sliding the breech back to put a round in the chamber, clicking off the safety catch, laying it down on the desk so the barrel pointed straight at me. And I'd fired a Luger long ago, and I knew what a hair trigger it was, and so did he. He knew what the threat was, and started asking me questions, but we're only allowed to tell them number and name, and that's it. If you tell them any more, then they start pumping you. This is our intelligence officer telling us this. You stick to that, and they won't pump you. And that proved quite well. Throughout interrogation at Dalagluft in Frankfurt on Main, about a week later,